and or afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come talk to us, and hopefully we can give you some information that will make it worthwhile. We're going to talk about a little bit about our product today, but more about how our product will fit into your infrastructure and the challenges you face. And this, I'm thinking, will sound very familiar to all of you, but maybe we can give you a little extra spin on it that might help a little bit. As we go out and talk to enterprise customers, and we have lots and lots of them, the story is remarkably similar, although little pieces are different, and the story is it's very complex out there. There's been such a lot of growth, organic growth, growth through acquisition and mergers, every kind you can think of, and the result is an infrastructure that's challenging. It's physically challenging. It's separate cities, separate locations, separate buildings. It's commercially challenging with different programs, different applications running, different versions of software. And of course, the business side demands that you make this as functional and highly effective organization as you can. And part of that involves looking at your enterprise and seeing what you can do to make your company more productive, more effective. And for all of you, that's a challenge. It's even a challenge for a single-site organization, but it gets geometrically worse, I think, as you look at larger organizations in multiple sites. And what we understand is we're a small part of this, and we can't really drive that change, but what we need to do is fit comfortably within that change. So if we look at enterprises and we go out and talk to people, the story out there is unified communications is a part of this infrastructure redo. People understand, I think by now, that unified communications does successfully increase productivity and add some very, very strong benefits, but it's very complex in implementing in an infrastructure. And just by the very nature that it involves tying together disparate systems makes it a little more complex than just replacing something. But that be as it may, there are still a large amount of enterprises that are looking to deploy that out. And of course, what slows people down is the fact that it's going to be very expensive and it's confusing. So people have come to the stage where they make some fairly complex plans in terms of getting from where they are today to where they need to be to implement this kind of functionality. And it's no surprise that a lot of the early efforts for this unified communications rollout are happening in the communication space on the telephony side. And the reason is, in most cases, an enterprise's email and groupware infrastructure already went through this change and this consolidation, and most people are in far better shape on that side than they are on the telephony side. So we're going to talk a little bit about our product and how it fits into your changing telephony environment, and a little bit about the functionality we bring, but more about how we fit into your enterprise. As you go out and you decide there's something you need to fix, you really have that kind of first choice, that first bridge in the road, which is, do I just take what I have now out and replace it all, or do I find a way to use some of what I have today and some of the new functionality and tie it together with a bridge? And we obviously fall very strongly on that bridge side of the argument. While you can go out and people will talk to you about tearing out your infrastructure, all of it, your messaging, your call control, your call center, everything having to do with telephony, and replacing it with a giant suite of products. And while that might sound a little enticing in the beginning because it seems to imply simplicity, as it turns out, what you end up getting are some really good products and some really not so good products sort of mixed together. No vendor has the leading product in every market space today. You go out to the industry analysts like Gartner, and they talk about, while the suite has some appeal, you won't get best of breed. And they tell you if you want best of breed, you look solution by solution, and you find out who in that market space is not only the best of breed, but is strong in the interoperability side, so that they can actually go into your existing infrastructure and not give you a list of things you have to change out, but simply tell you how they can connect to that infrastructure. And that's really, that's our forte. We are the leaders in interoperability. And it has largely to do with our history. We're not owned by a vendor that makes a phone system or routers or anything else. So we focus on this market space, on messaging, call management, business process, and we focus on doing it in any environment. We're the last significant telephony manufacturer left that actually still builds and maintains connections to all the phone systems out there. We don't rely on third-party gateways. We actually do it all ourselves. We support gateways, but we find the control over that level of integration makes it a lot easier to fit within a customer's organization. So we're we're not really going to go into much detail about our actual applications here and how they work. But I did want to at least say this is a very powerful unified communications platform. It does a lot of things. We kind of start by talking about voicemail replacement because that's why a lot of people are out shopping today. But that's just a small part of what we do. Unified messaging, unified communications, business process, custom development, mobile interfaces, all of that is part of our suite. And it all works no matter what your architecture. So we're going to be looking at architecture a lot as we move forward in the rest of these slides. And I just want to let you know, regardless of how you deploy, all of our functionality remains the same. We remain consistent. If you need to put it all inside your own private cloud, everything we have works there fine. If you need to do a hybrid, we have ways of doing all the same functionality that way. And even if you move everything out into the cloud, we have ways of deploying the functionality we have in that environment as well. So we run plenty of these webinars, and we certainly invite you to come to as many as you'd like. And a lot of them focus on the point solutions, on unified messaging, on mobility, on business process, and you can get lots of information about our product from those. But today we're going to talk more about how we would go into your infrastructure. And to do that, we have to talk about a couple of different things. As we grew our product, if you go back 20, 25 years, we were one of the leaders in small enterprise or branch office call processing and messaging. That's how we started. And we've grown our product over the years, and the drive to grow even today comes from centralization. We had a product maybe 5 years ago that did 192 ports, and it would pretty much handle any single site, almost any single site customer. But as customers started to consolidate, and then this kind of happened first in the network and groupware world, where they decided, wow, there's a great economy of scale and savings. If I can take my 5 domains, maybe with Exchange in them, and convert them into one and centralize, they then started to look out at their other solutions and see how they could follow that same path. And suddenly, we didn't have enough ports. We weren't scalable enough. We had some other issues with reliability in terms of a high availability architecture, and all of that led us to consolidate our development efforts into one focused effort to make the platform scalable and highly reliable. And we still added some new features to it over those years, but it was really a drive to match the desire for large enterprises to have something that sort of fit into their general plan of high availability and reliability. So we're going to look at some of those features here and how we do that. But what we've done with our product is make it so you can go out today. Let's say you have 8 locations across the world, and in those 8 locations you have 5 kinds of PBXs perhaps, and maybe even 3 or 4 kinds of email systems deployed. You can actually take a single CX system today, deploy it to cover all of those sites as a single integrated solution, one platform, not networked together. This is a single integrated platform that supports all those PBXs, all the different types of user interfaces you have out there. Everything that you need to do today, you can centralize with our product. And that's what people find is sometimes a very easy starting point for them. They're not ready for that rip and replace to take their older telephony systems out, but they would like to get started in, if they're going to roll out unified communications, they'd like to start with it centralized right from the beginning. And we offer some real advantage in that area. So if you take a look at a single CX system, you can hook it up to 10 different types of phone systems. And that's not 10 phone systems, that's 10 types. So you could go ahead and put, a couple of Astra systems, half dozen Lucent systems, 2 Mitels, put a Microsoft Link gateway in it, connect it to an NEC switch, all of those all at once. So whatever your infrastructure is today, you're going to be able to roll out our solution to accommodate what you have in place. Then, as you consolidate that infrastructure by perhaps starting to roll out some voice over IP and centralizing, you're going to be able to take those same components and simply reprogram them to match your new infrastructure. So we not only let you get started today without having to change out your voice infrastructure, but we will change and grow along with you by simply changing the software, the programming piece. Today, you have 5,000 users in a building, and it's connected to an older Avaya system, maybe an older Definity system, and you're going to upgrade it now, and you have a centralized voice over IP structure. You pick a new product. We simply call into that server and say, no, those users now are on integration to this new type of system. And you can actually put both sets of users as you migrate them. So some of your users can move from the older to the newer system step at a time and make it a very easy implementation from our point of view. Certainly a complex implementation overall, but our piece actually is very simple to do. So if we look at private cloud centralization, and our definition of this is fairly simple. You have a data network, it spans multiple locations, and you're going to own everything within your network. It might be in different buildings, you might have leased lines connecting them, but basically all of your systems are resident in your buildings somewhere and managed by you or vendors for you. In order for us to match that kind of architecture, the first thing we needed to do was have a system that could be deployed in very, very flexible ways, not just a single physical server that did it all. While you can deploy a CX, you can actually put a 4-port CX system in today that has every bit of functionality that our system has. We don't need extra servers for features or any of that. We are very much a single integrated solution set. But what happens is we find for a number of reasons it's going to be helpful to be able to deploy the system on multiple servers. Some for scalability, some for high availability, and some for consolidation to remote sites. So we took our software and we split it into two pieces. It's the same code we've had for years, but we've re-engineered it inside enough so that we can load one instance of what we call a call server on a physical server, and that connects to the phone system, has the integration, it runs the applications, it plays the audio, it records the messages. And I can have another software load called a system server, which is all the centralized functionality. It's the admin interface, the message database, the user and system database. It's basically the core functionality that never changes no matter what else is going on. And I can actually put both of those on one physical server if I want for a small implementation, but I'm more likely in an enterprise to put multiple servers in place, and we'll start with a couple of system servers, or a couple of call servers and a system server. This is a very basic kind of implementation. And this is a very much a high availability solution by virtue of none of those servers can fail and take you completely out of business. You're still going to have the majority of your functionality available. And we'll talk and look a little bit about that. We have a whole webinar that we do on the high availability options because it's very, very flexible. But that is one of the reasons we re-architected the system. So now we get to go in the room and have the great whiteboard discussion, which happens on pretty much any engagement with a large enterprise. At some point in time, we have to talk about your architecture, and the easiest way tends to be you put all your smart people in a room and you draw it up on a whiteboard, and now we can come in and show you how we match to your existing infrastructure. So I can deploy, maybe at your main site, a couple of call servers connected to your PBX and a system server. And now we can go out and talk about your remote sites. What kind of connectivity do you have? What's your latency? What's your bandwidth? And then I can determine, working with your people, how important is real-time communications. So I might go out to another site that maybe has your call center in it, and we'll put two call servers off of the same system server, so it's the same integrated system, but we'll put them in that remote building. And the reason we do that is if the data connection fails between that remote site and the main site, having call servers out there means it'll still answer calls, it'll still take messages, it'll still run all your call processing applications. So there's a great amount of extra reliability by putting multiple call servers. That being said, you might have another office that isn't quite so real-time critical, and you might make the decision to put a single call server in. And we support that as well. It's just a mix and match thing based on what your needs are, and we simply are going to match that with our architecture. We also support media gateways. We support dialogic media gateways. Out at some sites, you simply don't want to have a physical server. You have nobody that can manage patching it. You really are looking more for an appliance approach. And for that, we can put one or two dialogic media gateways or more out on a site. Those dialogic media gateways basically convert the integration from the phone system to SIP and connect to one of the call servers back in the main site. So functionally, there's no difference. The big difference is, while you don't have to load patches on it, if the network fails when you're using a media gateway, you basically have no functionality at that remote site. So we have the discussions talking about which sites is that high availability really required for, and which sites is ease of maintenance more of an important piece. And then for any of your remote sites that are current software and have IP integrations built into them, we can connect those back as well. So now we sit and we let you show us, what your existing infrastructure is. We map it out, and then we talk about, so what are you going to do with these sites? Well, we plan to roll out some voice over IP and bring these two in later. And then we say, okay, so that's fine. When you do that, here's your choices. You can leave the call servers on site. You can roll them back up. We really are able to match your architecture and your future plans, no matter what they are, no matter what products they involve. And that makes us more flexible than all of our competition. There is a pretty good reason to put a call server out at most sites. And what you end up with is the ability to function. So let's say you have a remote site, and it's fairly important, so you put a couple of call servers in it, and now you have a data network failure. And the network's down. And that means the call server can't talk to the system server or the control server. But the call server is highly survivable. It will continue to answer calls. It will run all your call processing applications. If you have a custom business process like an IVR application we built for you, that will continue to run. That won't be affected. We will transfer calls. We will play announcements, everything. And when it gets right down to it, we'll let the outside caller leave a message. But we can't put that message anywhere that's accessible because we can't talk to the system server. So we cache that message. As soon as the network's back up, everything syncs back up again. So by having multiple call servers, you could actually have up to 10 different sites with 2 call servers in each site for a true redundant support setup across all 10 of those sites. And no one else can match that kind of flexibility. A couple of customers offer 2 sites, one offers 3 sites. We actually do up to 10 sites. And you could have 20 sites with a single call server that's still able to survive a network failure. So a very flexible mix and match type approach. So the whole thing in picking that kind of architecture apart, it really has to do mostly, it's not really size issue all the time, it has to do with the functionality at that location. So you have some locations where you really need those phone calls to be answered 100% of the time, always. And for that, call servers are the logical piece, and multiple call servers might even be an even better way to go because that covers you from the failure of a single call server. And then there's other sites where you just want to put that dialogic media gateway up in a rack, plug it in, and never have to do any maintenance on it at all. And from our point of view, these integrations offer identical functionality. There's no, if you go with dialogic media gateways, here's the functionality you don't get from a user's point of view. It's all identical. We try to never make infrastructure impact functionality. So the next kind of step we look at, and this is a little more maybe feature-centric, is people really want high availability and redundancy, and we certainly have it covered with the call servers, but we also have it covered on the system server side. For some customers, the fact that if they lose their system server, their users temporarily can't get to their messages is considered unacceptable. So for those people, we can actually put a pair of system servers in active-passive mode. And the active one keeps the passive one updated real time. It's within a few milliseconds of being the exact same server. And in the event the active one fails, or the passive one, which is monitoring the active one, decides it has problems, a switchover occurs automatically and almost instantaneously. Calls in progress are not affected. So basically, we switch over to that system server. It's now the active one. We send out some alarms. Someone comes back and figures out what happened to that one and fixes it and then re-promotes it to the active role. So we can not only have 2, but we can have 3 system servers. And the third one typically would be deployed as a remote data site for true geographic redundancy. We have full geographic redundancy on this product where if you were to lose, you could set it up with another system server off-site somewhere, and if you were to lose this entire main site, the other one could be promoted, become active, and it would go down and connect to everything, and you would be back in business. It might take a few minutes depending on your network infrastructure, and we're going to probably use your DNS records and things like that. But basically, full geographic redundancy, all inherent in a single product. And as we grew to match whatever your capacity and your architecture is going to be, we scaled the product up so it does 500 ports. We don't license users, but that's kind of maybe 45,000 users fit comfortably on 500 ports. And that varies a lot depending on which applications you're going to deploy. And that number of ports continues to grow year after year. Of those, 20,000 can easily be configured for unified messaging. You can have 20 call servers, and as I said, up to 3 system servers deployed in various combinations. On a single call server, you can support 144 ports. If you're not using our advanced speech recognition applications, or up to 96 ports on that single server if you are. And then up to 10 separate types of PBXs connected. So far, we haven't sat down with a customer yet whose architecture was so complex that we couldn't mix and match these components and give them what they were looking for. And the different kinds of customers that we have been able to match up with is probably one of the most interesting parts of what my job is, because we run the complete range from single sites that need a large, highly reliable system to multiple sites that are concerned about having everything working all the time, down to kind of the more complex people who pick our product because of the functionality and the ability to customize it using our tool set. So we have lots of references regardless of the industry you're in, the size you're in. We would be happy to put you in touch with some customers very similar to you in your architecture and your type of PBX, and you can talk to them about what the process was like in moving over to the CX system. Our core product was architected from the very beginning with kind of a unique architecture in that everything runs on top of this interoperability layer. And that's how we're able to do more call servers and more integrations to telephone systems and support 10 different email systems for unified messaging on a single server. It's just one of those things that our architecture lets us do. And in each of these application tiers, you see that we have a very wide range of functionality. In the mobile side, we have mobile clients, we have unified messaging, we have a speech interface so people in their cars can quite easily read their emails and send new messages. We have the legacy voice processing piece covered. This product, we started designing it in 1982. And while we have upgraded it and changed the operating system along the years, you actually could have installed this in 1985 and recorded a name and greeting and be using that same name and greeting and those same keystrokes in your mailbox today. There's a lot of extra keystrokes if you've added some of the extra functionality. But we're a very strong believer that once you put something into your enterprise, you don't want to spend a lot of time and money retraining your users and changing it over. And then the last application tier is, no matter how good we are and how hard we work, we still have customers who come to us with unique needs that just aren't in the core product. So we have a set of toolkits that you can use to write custom solutions on our platform or on your platforms that take advantage of all the things that CX can do. So our UC business practice we will write those with our professional services, or if you have programmers yourself, the tools are available, and you can write a lot of custom solutions that solve those kind of little problems where you haven't been able to find anybody that has a product that specifically focuses on those. So that's another discussion and webinar we are happy to have. If we go back and talk to our customers about, we're pretty successful in the enterprise space, and considering our name recognition is less than our competitors, certainly Avaya and Cisco and Microsoft are better recognized names than ours is, but we still continually win this enterprise business, and we do it from a mixture of flexibility and architecture. We can literally go into any environment and tune this system to give you what you're looking for, and then our interoperability lets us connect to anything you have out there today. And on top of that, we just have the widest range of unified communication solutions that you can get from a single integrated platform. Now, I keep saying single integrated platform because one of the things that can be very confusing for potential buyers of UC is they will have a vendor in who will put slides up and say, yes, we have a speech user interface, we have a speech rec automated attendant, we have native mobile clients, we have custom programming tools. And then if you could get up close enough to that board and look in the very fine print in that PowerPoint, it probably says, but we combine different applications to do it. So a lot of our competitors would give you a speech rec IVR that runs on a separate application, meaning if you're already logged into your mailbox and somebody calls in looking for you, those two applications, they don't communicate with each other. Everything we do is integrated. So if I'm logged into my mailbox and you call me, I will get a whisper transfer in my ear saying you're on the phone, and I'll have the choice right then and there to stop what I'm doing and take that call. That level of integration is unique to our offering. And lots of customers deploy that. And this is, this is the traditional marketing slide to show that, we're legitimate and have a nice, strong presence, which it does. These are great customer references. But as I look across them, what I see are all the different ways we were able to do what the customer wanted. First Energy, we deployed a huge matrix of systems and tied their infrastructure together And on a lot of them, they had to have dialogic media gateways. They weren't actually allowed to have servers in some of their facilities. As a power company, they had some restrictions. So centralization mostly with dialogic media gateways. If I go down and look at Procter & Gamble, they did that same kind of, they centralized in 3 worldwide centers, and they used mostly call servers because of the reliability factor. And I can simply go across here and find small customers, large customers, centralized customers, customers with unique security requirements on the government side, and almost no matter what they had, our solution was flexible enough to meet their needs. And that's probably one of the reasons we're able to have a slide like this up there, is we are the most flexible, feature-rich product on the market today. And hopefully that's an outrageous enough statement that it'll garner some questions.
There you go. We do have a couple questions, and again, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type that into the question pane. One of the questions was, are these slides available for download? And yes, they are. We will send out an email after the webinar for you to download the slides. Another question, Neil, is, I'm not sure what this is referring to, but the question is, what about ROLM, Nortel, and Lucent Definity?
So we are the last of the great pioneers, I think, in the integration side. I mean, we talked about First Energy briefly there. One of the real pluses that led them in our direction was they had an old Roam switch. And we were the last one out there. I mean, and they couldn't upgrade it. Roam's a dead product line. They couldn't get it up to SIP. They couldn't. You can't even upgrade it to the latest version of Roam because those PBXs are out of support. But we were actually able to use the older voice bridge technology and integrate to that. We have 4 active integrations for old Definities. We have station set. We have analog. We have T1. We have in-band. We really have all of those older switches covered. There isn't a product in an enterprise today that I know of that is capable of integrating that we don't integrate with. We go back as far as the oldest of the Roam switches, like the 8001s and things like that. So we're happy to have a conversation where you can, specifically tell us what versions you have in software, and then we can tell you what your choices are in terms of integrating.
Okay, and then I think to follow up with that question, another question came in, what about Toshiba?
So most Toshiba integrations either use in-band, analog ports with in-band, or they use their own version of an SMDI link, and we have support for both of those.
Okay. Can you synchronize MWI with cloud-based email or hosted email?
So that's kind of a mixed answer. Today, the only cloud-based email we're aware of that offers that as a feature that they support is Office 365. And we have an integration with Office 365 that will sync the message waiting lights no problem at all. We have a lot of people using Gmail, and we have a version of a Gmail integration where we leave the messages on our server so message waiting lights work, but we still connect the user, so when they call in over the phone they have both their email and voicemail available, but the messages actually never go there. And the reason we use that one in Gmail is if I put the message in Gmail, the Gmail application itself has no way to tell me when the user has listened to that message. So Office 365, full MWI, no problem. Gmail, no way to do it if we're storing the messages on the Gmail server.
Okay. Next question, how does the mobile client work? Does it use the data network to communicate and make calls via the call server? What is the failover for this?
Yeah, when we designed this, a lot of our competitors had set up these really nice applications where the data channel was used for data and for voice calls. And we kind of wandered around for a couple of weeks thinking, okay, if I was here, what kind of connectivity would I have? If I was here, what would I have? And it turns out, in our belief, that voice communications are not universally going to be available. There's just not enough bandwidth. But there is for data. So the way our application works is mostly we use data, except when the time comes when we have a really nice call screening app that people really love. And you're sitting in a meeting and you have your mobile device on your desk, and somebody calls in and asks for you, we can actually send a data packet to your mobile device that does a little pop-up and says, John Tyler's on the phone. Would you like to take this call, acknowledge this call? What would you like to do? And if the user says, take the call, then that sends instructions to CX, and the call comes through on the regular voice channel. That way we're not tying up gobs of data. The caller can say, or the user can say, acknowledge the call, pick their phone up and say, yeah, John, listen, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you when I get back, and puts the phone down, and that little piece of audio message goes back over the data channel. So we mix and match those channels based on what we think is the most effective with true phone calls always going through the regular telephony side of the mobile channel.
And Neil, did you have anything to add before we close out?
I echo those same thoughts. We understand this is, for Emily and I, this hour is what we're supposed to be doing, and for you, you had to carve it out of your schedule. It's actually harder for you to be here than it is for us. So we appreciate when you take the time. We hope you find it valuable, and we really encourage you, if you do or don't find it valuable, to let us know. What other types of things could we do? How could we do it better? Or if you thought it was helpful, let us know so we can continue to do these kind of presentations. We think there's a lot of information out there that we can get out to people, and we're just happy when people show up and listen.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.